Dear friends, I am so glad that you've come out today. In Florida, on the west coast of Florida, we're now experiencing really the intimations of summer. We're just a few days from the beginning of summer. And I have many people who've been calling me with their questions about how can I feel better? I'm suffering from one form of situation that I need help with. And I find that the topic for today would really be best to address these questions that so many people have that are regarding their own conditions. I have promoted the material of the research of more than 12 people who are on the front line of healing alternatively in America. And these are people who are not unfamiliar with the medical research that is available. But what they have found individually, most of them, is that through their own healing, using more of a plant-based diet, they were able to turn their own conditions around, and they were so excited and invigorated by doing so and being naturally inclined to help others. They ended up sharing their story and then really building a knowledge base around things they had learned in their own healing, and they shared that with thousands of other people. I've been following herbalists and macrobiotic healers and raw foodists, people who don't prepare their food at a heat that kills the live enzymes in the food. I have followed vegetarians who have used specific healing diets. I've studied the Ayurvedic preparation of food for healing. And what I've found in all the years of study, including my own experience with those diets, is that if you increase the amount of live plant-based food in your diet, you will have incredible results in terms of your own living. The last few weeks, I have been going through the testimonials, having finished a 12-week workshop with a group of people. And the ending testimonials have been very, very exciting. During that process, people have been coming up with questions that were sort of the trailing questions from this 12-week workshop. And so I'd like to address some of the menu choices I've just recently been sharing with some of those people who had questions at the end of this workshop. They're launching their lifestyle changes on their own, and so they're calling in for some support, which is always recommended when you make a change in your life. We all need each other very, very much, especially when you're making big changes. And even to make the little changes that I recommend one step at a time, it is always good to keep in contact with someone who either can be a little bit of a guidance to you or even just some moral support. So I often recommend that people find a buddy or a family member or even someone that they know who could use some help with their health, and then really keep a communication going. So some of these questions are the ones I want to bring to you today. So the session today is menus and tips for nutritional renewal. If there are any questions that you have during the session and you would like to ask them, I would like to address them before we finish this Q&A session. So please feel free to use the chat box to the right of the broadcast and just type in a question, and then I will address those questions towards the end. So back to the topic. These people who've been calling in recently have had such a variety of things going on. One of them has expressed that the iron in her blood is not high enough, that she's really experienced recently a drop in her iron. And she's had this condition for many, many years, like decades. And she was doing very well with it, but felt that there was maybe just a little shift in her iron, and what would I recommend? Well, it's interesting because just this week, a friend of mine went to a doctor, and the recommendation by this doctor, who's working in a county clinic and is trained like most of the others, came up with a solution that I would have suggested myself. The doctor said, if you're not able to take regular iron supplements, I recommend that you use beets. So this gentleman who ordinarily doesn't juice, maybe he's juiced at a much younger age. I think he talked about someone that he knew who was juicing when he was younger, but this man doesn't even have a juicer. So he asked to borrow mine. And in his process of navigating this suggestion by the doctor, how do I incorporate iron that is bioavailable and in a plant food that I could use in my own diet? How would I create a beet drink that would work for me? So he went to the store. He put together carrots, apples, beets, and watermelon. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't even think of using watermelon or any of the melons with some of the root vegetables and some of the more temperate zone fruits, but it was a wonderful combination. I got to drink it myself. So when this woman from the question I just brought up about having a low iron asked me what would I suggest, I actually gave her the recipe of this gentleman who'd been navigating how to use beets in his life. So the beets are this red, very earthy flavor. Some people are very attracted to them, and there's a reason for that. Nature has it that we are attracted to the things that we need from her. So it's very interesting when someone says, I'm having a crazy need for mangoes or for avocados, or in this case, the man was very attracted to beets. And in fact, he was very attracted to everything red. And he picked up the watermelon and added it to the drink. And he even thought maybe for a little zest, a little ginger. And he didn't know better than to use ginger ale. So I suggested to him another way to put ginger ale in a drink to give it that zest that a man who's not been juicing might require to really enjoy the drink, is just to add a piece of ginger root into the juicer and a little bit more apple to sweeten, so that the ginger ale, which is both sweet and gingery, come together in the drink. So this is a phenomenal recipe. He made so much of it that he gave it to me for several days alongside of his drinking it himself. So it's very interesting that some of the doctors are actually finding ways to address the needs of people that ordinarily they would have chosen in a different way in the past, simply a supplement, as iron pills or even a vitamin that includes iron. Many people can't tolerate some of the supplements that are on the shelves in the local marketplace, the regular grocery stores. So this was interesting to me that a doctor had come up with just exactly what this man needed, and in the most bioavailable form of iron. There are other ways to get your iron from other foods. For this woman, I wanted something that would immediately give her not only the iron that she was requiring, but also a little bit of a lift. And the watermelon is a wonderful way to help with the blood sugar when someone is going through a process. Oftentimes, something from the fruits and vegetables that gives more carbohydrate, a little lift, can really help someone come out of a slump that's occurred because of a change in their blood. So this is one of the recipes I gave her. For those who are cooking some of your preparations, both in your food and your diet, but also perhaps some medicinal drinks that you're doing by cooking, I want to let you know that I also recommended to her, she's doing a transitional diet. She's adding some fresh and raw food to basically a cooked diet. And so I recommended the aduki bean as one of the things she could make as the basis of a soup. The wonderful red aduki, A-D-U-K-I bean, is very, very helpful from the Oriental perspective of medicine. It is very helpful to the male and female organs. So with her situation where she was having trouble with her blood and needed some support of her female organs, I suggested that she cook up the aduki beans. You can find all of the simple ways to cook up rice and grains and beans on any of my YouTube videos, not not only the ones that I've already created, but these will be upcoming as well. The aduki bean can be prepared in a big pot. I told her to fill most of the pot with water because I wanted her to make a soup. We made out a quick shopping list, and one of the ingredients was kombu. And I asked her to get maybe, kombu comes in sheets about this big, pieces this big. It's a very thick seaweed. In the seaweeds that come from the sea they're full of minerals. And those minerals are in the constituents and the proportions that are perfectly made for human beings. The seaweeds that come from the sea are very similar in their constituency to the human blood. So when we are deficient, taking in the sea vegetables is very, very helpful. So I suggested to her that she would cut a piece of the kombu. It comes dried, of course, and cut a piece maybe 2 inches and put it in a huge pot with the aduki beans. Now the soup that the aduki beans make from cooking, that wonderful thick bean tasting soupiness, that really is the medicinal drink itself. But since she's feeding a family as well as herself, and she's not feeling so well and her strength is down, I thought just have her husband shop for the ingredients, bring them back, put them in one pot, and let it cook all afternoon. And then the whole family would have something to eat this evening. So she put together a list for her husband to go to the store. And I said, if he can get the organic ingredients, that would be wonderful. So she went to the health food store for the aduki beans and some brown rice. The rice can be added a little later than the beans. The beans could cook for a little while and then add your rice. And then the beans and rice can cook with the seaweed. And the seaweed has plenty of saltiness from the seawater that comes in the flavoring of the soup. And then I suggested that some root vegetables and some round vegetables are very, very strengthening. The root vegetables can help with the nerves and are very strengthening in and of themselves. And the round vegetables are very good for all of the organs in the center of the body. So her ingredients included aduki beans, brown rice, kombu, Kombu, for the seaweed. I told her if he doesn't want to take much time with chopping, cutting the carrots in thirds and simple wash of the outside of the carrot, no need to peel a carrot, and taking an onion and maybe just slicing it once or maybe putting it in whole. I know the man is taking care of his family, and so I wanted it to be simple. And if he bought carrots with the green carrot tops, they could use the green carrot tops as the greens in the soup instead of having to buy collards or kale or something else in the store. And then we put carrots, and then we put in some winter squash. She happens to love butternut squash. So I said, just have him cut off the outside peeling of the squash and then cut it in cubes and put it in to cook in the soup. So this is a way to take the most basic foods that are used daily all over the planet. It's grains and beans and vegetables and some seaweed or a condiment of some sort. And making a soup is a wonderful way to gain strength. A little bit of heating in the process, if someone is not a raw foodist, can be a wonderful and healthful, just very comforting soup. So this is very supportive of her female organs, this particular soup. So this is what we did to help this woman. I wanted to address a topic that has come into my sphere more and more recently, and it is this in regard to hormones. People are experiencing as they get older, and also just due to stress, that their hormone levels are low. The hormones are really like a fire in us, and when we feel ourselves, we're connected to a healthy hormonal balance. The hormonal balance over the centuries, and I do mean thousands of years, in other countries, they've used all kinds of medicinal plants, and the particular way that those plants were used was very well known at one time. And some of those companies that have researched that and brought that to America, sometimes you can find some wonderful supplements or a doctor who has studied those things who can be of support. But I just wanted to say that sometimes a little bit of help can be had, firstly, from changing up the diet and really looking to, I heard a woman refer to it as the rainbow diet, to really look to incorporate all of the fruits and vegetables that really please you in your diet. And making sure, if you like blueberries, if you like watermelon, if you are very attracted to grains, or you're very attracted to some of the vegetables, and really maybe dislike other vegetables, to really increase the amount of variety in your diet. These fruits and vegetables, grains, beans, nuts, and seeds are very specific in a large amount of different vitamins and minerals and constituents, parts of the plant that are helping us in all different ways in the body. When we incorporate a rainbow diet, a diet that says we eat all the things we're attracted to in the plant world, that is something that is actually guiding us to get the right constituents from the plant world so that the hormonal balance can come into play again. I would recommend that for some people, I'm not dogmatic in the way I look at what diet someone needs. Some people need a raw food diet and they flourish. And others who are going through a different process where perhaps they haven't had the support in life that they needed, and perhaps even some organs are missing, maybe a gallbladder or some other process they've had to go through medically. It is sometimes very helpful that a little protein from the animals is very, very supportive of coming back into feeling oneself again. The animal meats and proteins can be supportive. So I do see that the way to address all of the conditions is very varied. And so when I speak of raw food as a way to increase the energy and vitality in your life, I really mean that even if you're eating some meat still and relying on animal products, that the plant life is really the vital part, the part that will really increase what you feel as a feeling of vitality. And when we eat the animals, they've already digested the plant world. The carnivorous animals eat the vegetation. So they've already done a process for us. And sometimes the animals are very, very helpful to our own process. So there are stages of life where people can be helped by different diets. And I've been through several myself, so I know that there are times in life when we are attracted to do one thing, and a disciplined way of changing up your habits is very, very helpful and can actually turn around most conditions that people are suffering from. I do want to put my spectacles on and take a look here to see if we have received any, very interesting. I did get a question right here on the telephone here. So give me just a moment to read it back to you. I'd like you to hear the question. Ordinarily, some have shown up already, but I think people are really just listening at this point. So here we have it. Is seaweed good for low thyroid? Natural desiccated thyroid like Armour instead of synthetic T4, Synthroid, or Levoxyl? Wonderful, wonderful question. The natural desiccated thyroid that can come in the form of a few different companies put out a wonderful product is very, very helpful in the process of regaining your thyroid health. The thyroid has been attacked in this country. Fluorines in the water and chlorine are very unhelpful to the thyroid. And for people who are much older, they remember when people had goiters in this country and there was a lack of proper iodine in the diet. And the the government actually stepped in and made a decision about that. The truth is, these days, people are getting their thyroid help through the doctors in the medical system, but some people don't find it sufficient to really regain a sense of vitality. And so I just want to address that question very, very carefully here to see how it was worded. Yeah, she was just asking about these natural desiccated thyroid. It is it's found to be very, very helpful in turning the situation around. So sometimes one has a doctor who has an open mind to say, perhaps the two that I've given you, Levoxyl and Synthroid, they're really not sufficient for you to feel that you have the energy you need in your living. And so that's a wonderful question. Many, many women and men, but especially women, are suffering from thyroid issues. I see that someone has brought up the question of consistent exercise and also about the amount of water to drink a day. In life, although we can remain very, very still and even hold our breath, the truth is everything in life is in constant movement. What is that telling us? It tells us that life itself has to do with movement. And I highly recommend that just being consistent with being in movement. So sometimes people feel to be in movement by cleaning their house and starting a garden and trimming their bushes and weeding and being outside and doing just the physical labor that's involved in taking care of a home or a yard. And perhaps even having work that involves movement consistently. The truth is to exercise and actually consciously make the choice to be in movement for a consistent period of time every day is a wonderful thing. I highly recommend that you find a friend who loves to walk. Then you can walk and share in nature, and then, or share wherever you are, if you're in a city and you get to walk the city streets together, to find a time of day and a time, a place that really feels suited to you. And then every day, make sure you find time for yourself. This movement is not only moving the physical body as we think of it. So if I'm moving my arms, I'm moving my breathing. If I'm moving my legs, I'm using my feet and all the musculature in my legs. The truth is, the movement of the physical body in simple walking is not only moving the way we usually think of it, with the muscles in the legs, it is also massaging the inner part of the body in the stomach, because as you walk, you're using the muscles. And as you breathe in and out with the fresh air, you're actually moving the blood, and what's called the blood and the lymph are all being moved by our breathing. It's why they call it cardiovascular, and it's helpful to the respiratory system. So this movement all through the body is actually massaging the organs and moving the blood. So regular exercise is a wonderful thing, and I highly recommend that you literally seek out the person who enjoys a simple walk in nature. And perhaps, you know, sometimes you can go, I'm looking out this beautiful window here where I'm sitting and seeing these 100-foot trees and all the vines growing down from them. Just to look at nature and see the changing skies, the changing light, the changing air as the seasons go on. This is a wonderful way to regain a sense of really being part of life in the proper way. It's a wonderful way to regain your health, actually. The people who are not active really suffer more from all of the diseases that you see prevalent in this country. And as far as how much water to drink daily, that's a very interesting question, because it really does have something to do with what we eat as well. in this culture where the standard American diet is so drying, bread, toast, chips, crackers, noodles, all those things that are flour products that literally take so much water from the cells from the inside of the body in order just to move them along in the metabolism, in the digestive system. Those foods are actually taking our water, whereas soups and fresh food and all of the plant-based fruits and vegetables that we use in juicing, that we use when we don't cook our food, those things have a lot of water in them. It's interesting when my friend, a gentleman that I mentioned earlier in this session, when he first juiced his carrots and his beets, he said there wasn't a lot of water in them. The truth is, when you look at a carrot or you look at a beet, you think it is solid. You don't think of it as having a juice that you could drink. The truth is, if you put it through a very good juicer, you get a considerable amount of water out of a carrot. It doesn't look like it's a watery plant, but it does have a juice in it. And if you combine enough of them with other fruits and vegetables, and that's really what attracted him to adding the watermelon to his juice, then you can see that almost every live plant is probably one of the best sources of water on the planet. So if you're not getting wonderful spring waters from the springs in the mountains, fruits and vegetables are a wonderful way when uncooked to receive the water that has been transformed through the growth of the plant. If you take a head of iceberg lettuce and you put it in a blender so that nothing's lost, all the fiber is there and all the water, it will turn into a green living liquid. When we think of salads in this culture, we think, oh, that's a light meal. That's not a meal for me. That wouldn't be filling. That's completely untrue. If you try some of the suggestions that I make in my YouTube videos, In the Kitchen with Alice is a YouTube series. And when you listen to some of these YouTube videos where I am showing people how to do juices, how to prepare fresh meals from fresh food, you will see that there is an enormous amount of liquid in the diet. And that liquid is carrying the vitamins, the minerals, the enzymes, and the phytonutrients that really transform the blood. And they give a basis for us for health. So this woman who called me, who said her iron was low, I say, do the fresh juices, get your water from the plants, receive the iron in its bioavailable form through your beets. And then for your family that you need to cook dinner for, prepare them a wonderful soup and have some of it yourself. The beans and the aduki beans especially are very, very supportive for that. And so you can see that the healing diets all over the world, they promote primarily plant-based diets with some use of meat. Most of the diets in the world are not vegetarian. They use a little bit of meat, either from the seas, if they're along the seashores of the world, and all the other cultures use less meat than we do. Except for the ones that are more and more westernized from the American viewpoint, and that is penetrating deep into other cultures at this point. But the cultures who have maintained more of the traditional diets, you'll see that they're mostly plant-based and they use a little bit of meat that they share among the whole community. So it's a very different way of living in the world, actually. In America, we're so reliant on very large amounts of animal food. So a lot of chickens, some pigs, some we're relying on the red meats quite a bit, and we're using a lot of the milk products from cows. So this preponderance of heavy proteins and fats, a little bit goes a long way. The fish oils are wonderful for the human body. So doing some fish in the diet is wonderful. The raw foodists that I know, they find someone they really, really trust with regard to eating any of the raw fish. Mostly I'm speaking about those who are still on a cooking diet, and those people are using meats that are prepared and not just prepared well, but the animals are treated well in the process. So when I promote that people use the meats in the diet, I really recommend that you find the farmers who care how the animals were treated in the process. It's not only how the animals were treated, which is a moral question and absolutely key to whether we're receiving the health from that animal, but also how the animal was fed and nourished and medically treated, because those things that are going into the animal are going into their meat and definitely going into their fats. So when those animals are mistreated, then those products that are coming from those animals are also not the best for us. So when I see that people are making a slight transition to a slightly healthier diet, I really recommend that they look into the quality meats where the animals are treated better and the quality of the meat is better in terms of not having harmful additives. For medicinal purposes, the cows and animals are treated with hormones and all kinds of things these days. So it's good to check into those things. Let me see what other questions may have come through. Oh, yes. We have quite a few people who are wondering about their diabetes, especially type 2, and really also the cardiovascular diseases. These conditions are so helped by the question of the woman that was just a few minutes ago about exercise. These diseases that are so prevalent in America are very, very helped by consistent exercise. There are some people on the front line of really the research behind exercise, and they're looking at the athletes who have done so well with their health. And one of the things they find is that with regular exercise, the constituents of the blood become healthy in and of themselves. So I want to say that as much as one can change an enormous amount of health simply by changing diet, the other side of the picture is really to round out, how do we live each day? How can we contribute to having a better experience in our own physical form? And better breathing that comes from exercise is a huge part of that. So now I know people who have done no exercise whatsoever. They changed a few things in their diet and they came out of screaming pain. And they came out of arthritis, their diabetes, blood sugars leveled. They lost weight. Arthritis related to bursitis and carpal tunnel and all those different inflammation processes that are going on that are so painful, all of those retreat. So it is not absolutely necessary that we have exercise, but it is a wonderful thing that if your body can move, that you do move your body. And particularly a simple walk, just being part of nature and part of the outdoors for a few minutes a day, and also having some sunshine. The sun is an incredible part in this whole picture. The sun is what's transforming the whole plant world into something that we can take in bioavailable nutrients. And the sun on our skin and its whole process with vitamin D is completely transformative. So when people are living where the sun is covered by gray skies, those people really understand what I'm speaking about. The sun in its light for us can be experienced not only all over our skin, but you can do sunning exercises for the eyes, which increase seeing. It can increase people's vision. So a simple sunning procedure is to literally close your eyes in bright sun and rock from side to side and allow your eyes to be seeing and moving and absorbing the sunlight through your closed lids. And so sunlight, exercise, more fully breathing, all of those things are going to contribute to being able to be still at night and really let go into sleep. It's another thing that people have been calling me about is insomnia and a feeling of unrest. And these foods and these activities that we brought up in this session, that's really about some of these very urgent questions that have come just in the last few weeks to me in phone calls and emails. I felt that we could address some of those specifically. I would love to hear any more specific questions that anyone has. Let me have a look again, see if anyone has sent another question. Okay. Let's see. Alrighty. It looks like I would like to let you know that wherever you're living, it's wonderful to become part of a weekly walking group. Sometimes a walk during the day with a friend as your regular exercise is wonderful for 30 minutes a day. But sometimes it's nice to get out and see a part of the area that you live in that you haven't seen much of. For many of us in Florida who've lived here for 20 or 30 years or more, we don't get to the beach as much as people who are coming to enjoy the beaches here because they live up north or in colder climates. So I would recommend for the weekly walking, get out to the beaches, go to places in your areas that have big parks, go down to a river, take a walk for 2 hours with a group of people. So if you can look on meetup.com, you can find a group in your area that is more active. And that way you can have a social life as well. Meet people who would like to be in nature. So I highly recommend that meetup.com, become a member, and then Meetup will find the groups in your area for you. And that way you can get out among a group of people and really enjoy your time exercising. As far as our area, my Meetup group is Sarasota/Venice area health, nutrition, and fitness meetup group. So if you will subscribe to my website and my newsletter on my website, you will see there an indication of the meetup group as well. My website is wholelifewellnessseminars.com. So 4 words in a row, whole spelled WHOLE, life, wellness, seminars, plural.com. So join me on my website, sign up for my newsletter, and find us on Meetup. We meet weekly, and we have been all over the area, as far south as 30 minutes south and an hour and a half north, and we've been all over. So this weekend we're going to meet. We're having a fruit luck at Venice Beach, and we are walking at the Venice Audubon Society. It's a beautiful lake. It's called the Rookery. And we are meeting there to be out in the sunshine together and to really share what we have been doing with our changes. I want to announce that we will be doing week-long retreats throughout the year. So do find my In the Kitchen with Alice YouTube series and find my newsletter on my website. And you will find the information for some of the things we will be intensively working with during the week-longs. There are 4 week-longs during the year that are seasonal. So we're having our midsummer one, July 16th through the 22nd. And I would love for people all over the country to find us and come here to really relax and be pampered and really go through a healing process together. So come find us on, I'm on Facebook, and the YouTube videos is a weekly series. So find my YouTube videos. There I will show you things that we will be doing intensively during the week-longs. And I look forward to having any more questions. So let me check one more time to see. the most recent questions so we can address what people are wondering about these days. Yes, sleep is a very big concern these days. Why aren't people sleeping? Why are they having what they call restless leg syndrome? It's a funny name, really, if you give it some thought. I find that, interestingly enough, not only myself, but the doctors are recommending that people actually do something that's active. I have a friend who finds that if he will move his foot very, very quickly before sleep, his restless leg syndrome goes away. There are very different ways of addressing things. Everyone is very different. So for my understanding of the most helpful ways to find a rhythm with sleep, it is to find a rhythm with your day, to find a rhythm with yourself, with the people that you know. It's very, very important that we communicate every day with people who are truly kind. Kindness and consideration and respect and all of those things help us to settle. Being in nature is our sanity. Seeing the sky, seeing the trees, watching a river, moving through the air and getting fresh air, being in the sunshine, feeling the earth, and sometimes making it a point that you're barefoot on the earth, that you really do feel the ground under your feet. The grounding that comes from the human body in contact with the earth is profound. There are many, many studies. In fact, there's a whole organization that is into promoting this understanding they've come to, that when the human body is close to the earth, things heal in the human body. So there are these rhythms that we can become more in tune with without even trying, or not trying much. A simple walk in nature with some fresh air and sunlight will change your frame of mind. And that change of mind is really key to finding good sleep. Exercise is key. If you cannot exercise your body, then exercise your soul. Get with people who stimulate your thinking, who bring out your creativity. Try a raw food retreat as the one that I'm creating here in Florida. We're going to do 4 raw food retreats during the year and week-longs in between, so that every month of the year we're going to have a week-long retreat in Florida for transforming your health. Try something new with your health. Add plant-based foods to your health. All of those things, all of the constituents that are already there in nature, they settle the organs and they settle you for sleep. So when your organs are settled, then you can settle. The rhythms where people wake up at a certain hour every night, those rhythms are known by the Oriental people as very particularly related to certain organs. If you wake up at one time of night, they'll say you have liver issues. You need to have help for your liver. And there are certain grains and certain vegetables and certain beans that support the liver in particular. And then if you wake up at a different time of night, it's really kidney dysfunction. So it's important if you can find people who know some of this material. In my week-longs in the past, and in my 12-week workshops, I have had therapists who are very, very good at reading what the organs are doing from an Oriental perspective. And what I'm telling you in a simplified form is that the wisdom that comes from the traditional way of eating that incorporates fresh food from the plants as the primary source of nutrition for the diet is the most human diet and is the most healthful diet. And if you will do the simple things that even the animals are teaching us, if you have a pet, I have a wonderful dog. If you have your dog or your cat, you will see them curling up in the sun, finding a place in the house that's near a window at times when they're not outside. Otherwise, they will go and they will make a direct beeline to have a sun bath. Why are the animals knowing these things? Because they have a wisdom that shows them, I need to be rejuvenated by the sun. And they lay in the sun until they're overheated, a little overheated, and then they come into the shade. And they know to run, and they know to walk, and they know to really be part of the earth that they are so at one with. So let's see what else we have here. Looks like another question has come in. I did want to just complete that thought on sleep before I move on. And that is simply that when you find that the rhythms that are most natural in life can come into harmony in yourself, your sleep patterns will change. And I know that people have been through many things that have affected those rhythms so deeply that they are really looking for what is the key that will help me. There are people who are working alternatively who have found that if you choose plant-based diet as your primary source of food, as the majority of the food you eat, and you add some meat, sometimes that protein is exactly what you need to start the fire that will really get you in touch with the rhythms you need. And I say that because I've seen some people who really do need the meat proteins for a period of time especially. And it's because an organ or two is missing, and perhaps they were even put on some of these drugs that were for very specific things in the body, but what it offset in other areas of the body was a whole syndrome, and they find themselves really struggling. The hormonal help, that bioidentical hormone replacement, if you can find someone that's working with those elements in a very, how would you want to put it? They're coming from a medical model, but they're working with the best substances in that regard. And they do the bioidentical hormone replacement. Sometimes those helps for a period of time are absolutely the thing to turn a life around. So I just want to say that when we're looking at this picture, although we may focus on bringing fresh, raw food, uncooked food, a very different way of looking at a diet than the standard American diet, the whole picture that I want to paint is really that all over the world there is a wisdom about what heals the human body and what is most balancing for the human body. And those things, we need to perk up our ears, and we need to share them with our friends, and we need to implement them for ourselves. And this will really turn many, many lives around, and this will give you back your health. So let's stay in communication with one another and really reach out and get that friend that will go out in nature every day and get some fresh air. Make a habit of it. Make a habit of bringing something fresh and vibrant, a beautiful bunch of fruits into your home. Add salads, create some beautiful vegetable dishes, and find your help in the world. We now have Google, and there are ways to find the groups of people and the information that we need. And I really encourage people to make an attempt to go beyond what you're looking at in your own sphere. People can get very caught up in their own world. It's very important to reach out. So I suggest that you Google a question, and that will probably lead to something where you could find information for yourself. Please feel free to contact me by email. And I also recommend that if you join meetup.com and you put in your interests, and one of them may be your health, you will be drawn by Meetup itself and through its organization to meetup groups that you could be part of. So groups that are active in nature, groups that are maybe meditative, and groups that are moral support to one another, groups that do activities you enjoy, and groups that have to do with health. Because when you're looking for the answer for yourself, it's very important to stay connected to very good people. So I have enjoyed my afternoon here with you. Thank you so much for coming out to Menus and Tips for Nutritional Renewal. And I will see you again in another month. And please do subscribe to my YouTube channel, In the Kitchen with Alice. and find me on my website. All of the links are on my website to all of the social media. My website again is www.wholelifewellnessseminars.com. Thank you very much for coming out, and let me make sure that I have not missed one last question before we. Okay. I do have one last question, and we do have a few minutes left to this Google Hangout. It's a very interesting question. It's a person asking about the patterns we have in our thinking and our feelings, and almost like habits of thought, and a question about what would you recommend in terms of meditation. That is a very good question, because I really feel that this whole question about sleep and the question of focus, the question of allowing your own inspiration to show up, your creativity, your vibrance, your desire to be more involved in life, and also your need to feel yourself, to feel connected to who you are, is connected to how we think and how we feel every day, and whether we can be calm enough to have a moment of contemplation or meditation. My answer to that is find the people who are kind in your life. Stay connected to them. Help them. Let them help you. Find kind people. Find the groups who are doing things that interest you. Find ways to be in nature where you're active. It doesn't have to be a hard run every day. It doesn't have to be weightlifting every day. It doesn't have to be cardiovascular where you're sweating like a, just tons. It doesn't have to be dramatic as much as it has to be. The most help is to have it be consistent. So get out in nature. What I find is that when we are in nature and we allow the day, which is always shifting, to have its influence on us, there's a calming of the thoughts. There's a change of your point of view. You may have been completely stuck on some particular worry, some concern. If you find a support group, a group of people who are doing something interesting, and you find a time to be in nature, your point of view will change. This change is meant for you in particular. It was made for you. You have to find that change. You have to seek to find what will pull you out of yourself. And as well, those things that pull you into yourself so you can be calm. And I find that kind relationships with people who are doing things that have an interest for me, that I find myself attracted to, and people who are really interested in assisting others and being assisted. I find that those are the most helpful to health. And as far as meditation, I always incorporate that as part of my week-longs, that we have some time where we just completely become quiet and still. And this is something that life in all of its fullness and activity, that it is a continual flow, and that we can pull ourselves into a stillness that allows us to actually deepen as people. So I do recommend meditation, a time to pull yourself back from your day, pull yourself back from others, and really have quiet and find the truth that is in you. That, I think that question, I'm trying to answer the question about habits of thought and habits of feeling. A lot of times anxiety or depressive feeling is part of people who eat a standard American diet. The ups and lows and changes in blood sugar cause those. Hormonal changes cause those. Drugs that are addressing certain conditions often have side effects. But more than anything, I think if you find good company and you find good thoughts, so perhaps taking up some reading, doing some information seeking on the web, there's so much out there. and connecting with people who know about other groups who are doing wonderful things. I'm part of a group who are lending and borrowing from each other and helping the world grow in their businesses. Their entrepreneurial pursuits of individuals are being supported by a huge lending community that I'm part of. And I'm both a borrower and a lender in that community. And that community is called Kiva, Kiva. These are people who are so interested in the activities and interests of other people. So the people that want to lend to others to help them grow businesses. That's very prevalent right now, that people are finding ways of working that are entrepreneurial, things that they are gifted at doing and are able to do, and then they're able to share it with others and make a living. So there are groups all over the world that are to be found who are doing things that interest you. And I find that if you can connect to people who are good and interests that are that involve your own creativity and your own interests, this lifts the feelings out of depressiveness and anxiety and worry. The economics of our times are hard and not easy on many, many people. So it's very good to find the ways to lift our lives up, not just with our physical health, but in every other way as well. Thank you so much for coming out to Menus and Tips for Nutritional Renewal. My name is Alice Gilmartin. I am part of and director of Whole Life Wellness Seminars. And I invite you to join us in Florida for our week-long retreats and every month on this live broadcast. Thank you so much for coming out, and I will see you the next time.